Hello and welcome to the Album Man, and today we are doing my random Friday thing. So, to show how really random this is, I put all the suggestions inside this envelope, and I'm quite literally going to be drawing one, and then you will see a jump cut as I listen to the album, write some of my thoughts down on it, and then of course I'll film the rest. So let's pick out which I put all the suggestions, which was on the Weekly Rock News, and please, here, if you want to leave some more suggestions, then they can go inside this envelope next time. Okay, so we have here Nightmare by Avenged Sevenfold. So, I suppose it's quite relevant. I'm going to be reading Hail to the King tomorrow, so that's a lot of Avenged Sevenfold. A bit, okay, well, you can read it if you can read my handwriting. That's what it says, Nightmare A7X. I'll go and listen to that then. Okay, so I've given Nightmare a listen, and these are some of my thoughts. So, just a bit of background on it for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with the band. So this album was released in 2010, and was a fairly big album for the band. Of course, it was the first since the death of their drummer, the Rev, who died in late 2009. And yes, replacing him on this album on the drums is Mike Portnoy, who in my opinion is, as I've said many times before, the greatest drummer I have ever heard. Though one thing about this album, which kind of disappointed me, but I don't really blame them for, is the fact that Portnoy just replicates the beats the Rev had already written from the album, so you don't actually see any real Mike Portnoy drumming here. I mean, his drumming's good on it, but it's nothing amazing. I mean, he's just copying already pre-existing beats, and I don't blame the band for doing this, as I understand this is a tribute to the Rev, and they wanted to keep the music he had written for it. And something that's quite interesting is this album was actually originally meant to be a concept album with the same sort of dark overtones as albums like Pink Floyd's The Wall or Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime, but after the Rev's death, the lyrics, quite obviously, became a lot more focused around that. And I have to say, I did go into this, listening to this album, with an open mind, as I try to with all albums. But I can't say I was most optimistic about liking it. I'm not an Avenged Sevenfold fan, though I do think the City of Evil album is fairly fun. And this album, it's a real mixed bag. Yeah, the first 20 minutes of this near hour-long album, they feel like a bit of a cock tease, as apparently they're actually really good. Yeah, they're four pretty heavy for Avenged Sevenfold at least. Very catchy melodic songs. I mean, it's really hard to hate the heartfelt, much reinvigorated sound of, like, the title track Nightmare. And these four songs really show the emotion they had at their loss. Buried Alive particularly, with its wonderful melodic lead work in the intro. I mean, it's just such a diverse song, includes some heavy chords and a piano section. I really like it. And let's see, the other two songs, so there's Nightmare, there's Welcome to the Family, Buried Alive, and Danger Line, not quite that order. But yeah, they're all great songs. The problem comes in the other 40-odd minutes. And one of my complaints with every Avenged Sevenfold album that I've heard, certainly, is the length. Yeah, I mean, for me the sweet spot of the length of an album is about 45 minutes, give or take, about 5. Now, and that is unless you're doing something like Pink Floyd's The Wall, to mention that again, or Dream Theater's Metropolis, and you have a lot of musical diversity, sort of maybe a lyrical concert, that definitely helps. Otherwise it just drags, and damn does this album drag and drag. I mean, let's just be honest here. A lot of this band's music sounds very similar. You have really two categories of songs. You have the heavy song and the ballad. And each song in these types isn't that distinguishable from the rest for this band. I mean, the three main ballads, So Far Away, Fiction, and Tonight the World Dies, I suppose that's a ballad, they're just pretty boring. I mean, So Far Away, especially, I mean, yes, I know it's meant to be a loving tribute and all that, but if they're going to do it, please at least make it interesting. I mean, even slightly, it's literally the most stale, sort of cliche, any ballad at any given moment on Kerrang TV type song. Another thing I'm not a fan of is the lyrics, I'm afraid. Yeah, I think there's so much potential, given the circumstances. There's some really interesting, meaningful lyrics, but instead we get these very obvious and meaning lyrics lacking any subtlety, and they bore me a little, though That's only a minor gripe, and another gripe that many people would disagree, of course, is I believe Emma Shadows to be a hugely, hugely overrated vocalist. His annoying sort of pseudo-hardcore teenage angst voice does grate on me a little. Though, yeah, I mean, and though the sort of the vocals and lyrics may be lacking musically, this album is very competently performed, especially guitar-wise from Sinister Gate and Zaki Vengeance, and if it wasn't for the unbelievably silly names, maybe I could take them seriously as guitarists because they have a lot of talent, and the Iron Maiden-esque guitar harmonies really make this album bearable. Yeah, they really work well together. Yeah, I don't know how they could replace either one of them. The chemistry between them is very, very good. And one song on this album I think is so overrated, and probably the joint worst song on the album is Fiction. Yeah, I think this is probably highly rated as it was the last song ever written by the Rev. And I'm sorry, but what a bad way to end your writing career. It'd be like if John Lennon's last song was Revolution 9. This trying too hard to be dark, fairly disjointed sounding power ballad is just simply not a good song. It has a fairly weak piano melody, and the vocals by the Rev, who sings co-lead, they're not great. They feel like they're there just because he's dead. And I think that's the reason they wear it. They're not strong, they're a bit too prominent in places, and he doesn't have that great a voice. I'm sorry, but really don't think he does. And the other worst song is God Hates Us All, with its faux aggressive metalcore growls and just nah, not my cup of tea. Really, to me the main frustration of this album is that some of the songs show maturity to the writing and evolution, but it seems as this album gets further on and progresses, it starts to devolve. And while this album wasn't criminal, it was mainly held up by its guitar work and the first 4 songs. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, lots of potential but not much success. This has been the Album Man for my first of my Random Friday segment. Hope you enjoyed. Can't wait to subscribe and leave some requests for albums you want me to review and feature in this segment in the comments below. And as usual, long live rock and roll.